Greetings and a warm welcome from me, astrologer Patrick Arundell. Today, in the latest of my deep dive videos, I'm going to explore the journey of the mighty Jupiter throughout the whole of year 2024. In traditional astrology, Jupiter is known as the greater benefic, so it's very much to do with optimism, expansion, growth, but crucially good luck. Now Jupiter is going to forge some critical connections throughout this year, and I'm going to share all of them with you. Venus is known as the lesser benefic, but it's still a lovely planet and can still also be very fortunate. I'm going to share when they come together in connections this year. But also we have Jupiter forging a link with Pluto, newly arrived on the 21st of January in the sign of Pluto. But even right through to the end of year 2023, ironically, Jupiter is forging a wonderful sextile with the planet known as the greater malefic, Saturn. And that's going to go on through to the 25th of March. So I'll share all about that with you too. I'm going to just dive into all the themes of Jupiter and also what we're learning through its journey through the earthy Taurus. We've got a critical conjunction with the planet of freedom, Uranus, which occurs on the 21st of April, the first for 14 years. Really exciting stuff. But then, as Jupiter makes its way into Gemini, a sign where it's technically debilitated, what can we expect? I'm then going to go on and share with you each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces to give you a flavour of what you can expect throughout this year. Now, if you would like to know what year 2024 holds for you in terms of your sun or your ascendant, please see the link beneath this video where you can watch my deep dive video for each of those 12 signs. There's also a deep dive overview for the whole year that you can watch too. And if you would like to understand much more about how Sirius Astrology can help you to develop your personal understanding, if you give me 3 pieces of personal birth data of time, date and place of birth, I can prepare for you your 12-month forecast from the time of your order. But in my special package, also your character analysis, your life roadmap, which will give you searing insights and a much more intimate understanding of the patterns that have played out in your life thus far. You get 30% off in my special offer, plus you'll get your horoscope forecast for 24, your Chinese forecast for 24 and your Indian Vedic forecast for 24, all completely free of charge. Please see the link beneath this video for more. So let's just explore the themes of Jupiter. It rules 2 zodiac signs. The first is the 9th zodiac sign, a fire sign, Sagittarius. It's mutable, it's the sole domiciliary ruler, so the only planet that governs the sign of Sagittarius. But Jupiter is also the traditional ruler of the 12th zodiac sign, the watery Pisces, but it does have a co-regent, Neptune. It too is mutable, so there is a sense of flexibility. Jupiter is the largest of the planets. It does go through an annual retrograde, and it usually takes around about 12 years to go through its entire cycle. Now, it is going to be moving into Gemini on the 25th of May this year, and the last time it was in Gemini was from June 2012 to July 2013, just to give you some context. But what are the upsides of the energy of Jupiter? Well, let's break it down into the 2 signs. Sagittarius energy is very hale and hearty, so it has a sense of optimism, larger than life, and definitely a fantastic appreciation of knowledge. Sagittarian energy often really appreciates travel, but that travel can be from the comfort of our homes through the knowledge we gain as much as actually physically moving around in the world. Sagittarius Jupiterian energy is much to do with freedom, independence, the law. It can also be to do with philosophies and history, international borders and boundaries. And Critically, of course, it can also be to do with good luck. But the vitality that the energy of Jupiter provides for Sagittarius people also gives a restless desire to grow. And therefore that it means that Jupiter doesn't settle, it's always looking to find a new way. Now, its rulership of the sign of Pisces is much more spiritual in a way. Because of the wateriness, that's much more sensory, but faith, hope, an understanding of how we can reach into a part of ourselves that perhaps isn't always easy through the earthly plane. But certainly people who have very strong Piscean Jupiterian energy can be very, very caring around anything to do with mental health, care work, or perhaps even medicine. Now, the downsides of Jupiter can be actually overconfidence. And one of the things that's important about its journey through the sign of Taurus is that Taurus does mute that a little bit. It grounds Jupiter, and therefore it's much less inclined to promise more than it can realistically deliver. Also, one of the traps of Jupiter, particularly if we tend to think of Jupiter and Saturn in very polarized and binary ways. Jupiter's the good guy, Saturn's the bad guy. That's not a great way to think. And ironically, as we come into year 2024, they are forging a collaboration from the 16th of December. But I'll revisit that shortly. So the downside can be that belief that everything will work out fine without too much effort from us. So we can read or see something that, look, Jupiter is in your 7th house, you're just bound to meet the love of your life. And do you know, I really don't like that when that happens, because I feel that it lets astrology down. It's too simplistic. So we have to be very, very careful with the language, but also be very realistic. But Jupiter can be something to embrace. It can give us a sense of uplift. And why shouldn't we enjoy good food and good wine? And if we have a strong Jupiterian influence in our chart, we probably will. We just need to be aware it may be difficult to adhere to the diet that we'd also like to keep to. And it can also see people be rather arrogant and self-important and have a sense of hubris. Well, everything always works out for me. You know, we've all met people like this, and it isn't particularly pleasant. The other thing that I think is really important about the credo of Jupiter, particularly around international affairs, is that you can have some players that have more military muscle and perhaps even therefore some political muscle through the financial markets. I'm not going to name the countries, and they may feel that it is their right because they feel their philosophy is more important than their neighbours. And we have to remember the sign of Gemini is very much about neighbours, siblings, and the media. And so it's going to be interesting what happens when Jupiter moves into Gemini on the 25th of May. But we have seen some land grabs going on in recent months, because the sign of Taurus is about land, but it can also be about resources that are taken from the land. So whether that's coal, whether it's oil, whether it's gas, whether it's precious metals, these things are things that can trigger the wrong motives, because that gives a greater sense of power and control. So we mustn't see Jupiter only as being a one-dimensionally amazing thing. It does have its downsides. Now, I just want to tell you about Jupiter's alliance with Saturn, which begins on the 16th of December 2023 and goes on through to the 25th of March within 3 degrees. They don't actually come into an exact sextile. A sextile is 60 degrees and enabling, and of course Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, which is very feeling, and that's interesting because there's a mutual receptivity, because Jupiter is the traditional ruler of that sign. But the great thing about earth and water is that earth, the riverbed, carries water, so there's a good conductivity there. And they are forging that very helpful alliance to one another. So what I feel that Saturn is doing is asking us all to be more conscious of working at the emotional and spiritual dimension to understand the physical dimension, because Jupiter in Taurus is very, very much linked to money and the markets. And of course, it is in retrograde as I record this video. It won't go direct until the 31st of December. That's something that we need to be conscious of. But it does forge a very good link with the Sun as we come into the new year. In fact, the exact trine with the Sun is on the 26th of December, and that can provide some uplift as year 2023 comes to a close. But what I like about Jupiter, the greater benefit, in an alliance with Saturn, the greater malefic, is they do provide some balance to one another's worst excesses. So that's something that's going to be playing out for us all collectively right through to the 25th of March. Now Venus is going to be making its way through Capricorn and forges a glorious 120 degree trine, the best angle in astrology for triggering good things. That occurs at 7 degrees in both signs, and it's exact on January the 29th. And because they're both in earth signs, that could see some kind of relief around some of the financial restraints that many of us have been experiencing over the last year or so. Now also from February the 26th through to the 4th of March, but exact on March the 1st, the Sun in Pisces forges a lovely sextile to Jupiter. Now, any angle between the Sun and Jupiter can be very, very fortunate. So if you're wanting to time something, it's at 11 degrees. So if you have got some good angles to 11 degrees Taurus or 11 degrees Pisces, that can be a very, very beneficial time too. Now, there's a very long connection that goes on between Jupiter and Uranus. As I mentioned before, the first time for 14 years that they've been in a conjunction, and within 3 degrees from the 30th of March right through to the 5th of May, we do have a conjunction between them. And it's exact on the 21st of April. Now, Jupiter conjunct Uranus can spring some surprises and opportunities, and because the sign of Taurus is very much about resources, if you are someone who's very open to new technology or fresh approaches, being more innovative, it could pay off for you really, really well. But for some people, there could also be a sense of repression, to be honest, if life feels a little bit of a grind, the job's not paid so well. The more freedom-loving energies of Uranus can want to break away from that philosophical straitjacket that some big employer is imposing upon us. So just remember that. So there could be some disruption with that influence. It doesn't necessarily follow that it can only be an upside. But I do think it is entirely possible that some kind of financial reward or promotion or romance, because obviously the sign of Taurus is ruled by Venus, so it's very sensual, and all of those things are possible, but that's the first time for 14 years. I do worry a little bit about the international sphere with that particular aspect, because Uranus is the ruler of the sky, so it's very much about higher truths. We could be asked to become much more realistic about where we all are around everyday money, which is Taurus. But also maybe we're going to have to give something up, something will change. And of course technology is moving at such a pace, that could be an issue. But maybe also some sudden action on the international stage, which Jupiter governs. So that is a little bit of a worry. But the Sun forges a conjunction at 28 degrees Taurus on the 18th of May. And do you know, that is such an enriching combination. The Sun, very much about the heart of our very existence, and you put those two together, it's very, very burningly hot. We're really maxing up the energy of Jupiter there in that particular cazimi, so that's beautiful. But also there's a conjunction between the two planets of fortune, Jupiter and Venus, on the 23rd of May, and that's at 29 degrees. So we're really getting to the end of Taurus then. And I feel what happens with all planetary transits is as we work with them, we actually start to make them work for us much better. It doesn't matter which planet it is. It starts off certainly with the first contact, and then of course we get the retrogrades. And the more we practice with things and the more we're prepared to work with it, then the more we can get the results. So I think some people are going to see some significant improvements in their situations in terms of income and stability, or just really appreciating the good things in life. And you know, Jupiter and Venus in the sign of Taurus, which Venus rules, is a glorious opportunity to learn more about home cooking, some new recipes, to really get local produce or to go out foraging. All of those things would be super for that particular aspect. But if you are someone who does enjoy a little bit of a flutter, then that date, the 23rd of May, can be very fortunate. Now there's a big event happening on the 25th of May, isn't there? Jupiter moves into the sign of Gemini. But as it does, it immediately is in contact in a trine, if not exactly, with Pluto. So Pluto newly arrived in Aquarius on the 21st of January on its birthday for 38 weeks in 2024. And that angle is incredibly powerful because it also interacts with the Chinese national chart in a very, very potent way. So I think that's going to be interesting because remember what I said about neighbours, and you know, we can see how things are going in the Ukraine. There's much more resistance to funding the war by certain players, usually very nationalistic politicians, which is absolute music to Putin's ears. But nationalism and that, remember what I said about that inflated sense of one's own importance and arrogance about ideas. And the third house can be our neighbours. It can be our brothers and sisters. So I do worry a little bit about that in terms of Taiwan. But of course, the air energy of Pluto and Jupiter being in such an enabling 120-degree angle is really exciting if you're someone who really is wanting to go with the flow with what we're experiencing with AI, robotics, and so forth. But there are going to be some very valuable developments that can be very good for personkind, especially in the field of health. But of course there will be also some very controversial developments around who has the money which can pay for the treatments that preserves life in a way that may not actually, in a spiritual sense, which Jupiter rules through Pisces, be good at all if people start to develop the ability to live longer and longer. So that's the kind of territory that we're coming into, isn't it? We can all see it. It's developing at the speed of light. But if you are somebody who's got early planetary positions across the air elements, so that's Gemini, Libra or Aquarius, something amazing can really happen for you during that time for sure. Now Jupiter is also going to forge a sextile to Venus, but Venus this time, just like it did for 4 long months last year, is in the glorious, beautiful sign of Leo. And that's exact on July the 21st. If you did want to ask someone out on a date, my word, that is a lovely aspect to have. Or just get together in some kind of party or gathering. Now Jupiter combines with Mars on the 14th of August. Now that one also could be a little bit of a worry around international affairs, because that's an aspect that knows no boundaries, and you know, it's very much to do with having an absolute faith, Jupiter, in our actions. Mars in Gemini can be quick movements. That's going to be very interesting. But if you have a child born around that time, they're going to be full of beans, full of wonderful energy, that's for sure. And it would be a great time to get physically fitter and more active. Jupiter forges a trine with Venus, this time in its home sign of Libra, and that's on September the 15th at 20 degrees. I rather like that because my ascendant's very close to that. I'll take that, that's lovely. We've also got a beautiful healing aspect on 2 occasions because of the retrograde between Jupiter and Chiron, October the 12th at 21 degrees and also November the 13th. I feel that knowledge can help us to understand things, and again it depends where Chiron and Jupiter are in your natal chart in terms of the house overlays that they're in. But there is also a fantastic trine with Venus once more on December the 20th. We're bringing the curtain down on the year at 14 degrees. Fabulous, really, really lovely, lots of chat. And what we can see with Jupiter in Gemini, I think, is that people are going to become more selective about their sources of information. So, for example, if you've always been a bit of a fan of Facebook, if the amount of adverts or control over information is now becoming unattractive to you, you may decide to use new social platforms. We may see other social platforms, I won't name them, perhaps starting to wither a little bit. Let's see. People are going to become much more informed with Jupiter in Gemini about how they're going to use communications. But are we going to have something where we tap our wrist and there's not even a watch there? Is that kind of technology coming? I think so. Are we going to have the kind of technology that if we think something, I fancy a pizza, suddenly we get a phone call from the pizza shop? It's entirely possible. All those kind of things could develop, especially, of course, with Pluto in Aquarius, because the journey of Jupiter through Gemini is going to be much more brief. And we also have the retrograde, which I need to tell you about. That begins on the 9th of October at 21 degrees, but it actually goes on for 118 days, 16.8 weeks, 32% of the year, through to February the 4th, 2025. So it doesn't fit entirely into 2024. And just so you know, that Jupiter will go on in the sign of Gemini through to June the 9th, 2025. So you can see there's some profound shifts and changes going on. The upside of Jupiter can be that sense that we will keep growing, we will still keep evolving. Knowledge will become critical to our development as a species. But there are also going to be downsides because Gemini energy in a more negative way, I feel, can see verbal exaggeration. It can be to do with gossip, fickleness, indecision. And what Jupiter really relies on most of all, particularly through its rulership of Sagittarius, is to come back, to widen the lens, get more of an overview of what's going on, and not get so caught up in the everyday discourse, which is what Gemini is very much about. So there are some challenges ahead, but I think overwhelmingly this is an extraordinary, exciting year with Jupiter in a sextile with Saturn, coming into a conjunction with Uranus, with Venus in the sign that Venus, its first sign that it rules, of Taurus. It's very much to do with sultry and earthy appreciation, money. Also that conjunction between the Sun and Jupiter in the sign of Taurus. And then, of course, we have the trine with Pluto and those lovely series of links between Jupiter and Venus throughout the rest of the years. So there's a lot to be hopeful about, but we are being encouraged to do a lot more talking. But the key with talking is also not just communication per se, it is comprehension. And Gemini energy can be quite speedy, and Jupiter energy can be a bit in a rush. So that could cause some issues. So we need to embrace that Jupiter and Taurus energy of being a bit slower, a bit more thoughtful in our approach. But in terms of how we connect with one another, our appreciation of how we move around in the world, especially short journeys, is going to become much more interesting. The sign of Gemini is very much to do with cycling. I think there's going to be a big uplift in cycling. I know a lot of people have a lot of issues with people cycling on pathways. I've experienced that as well. It's not nice if someone's bombing towards you at the speed of light and you can't get out the way. It's not acceptable. But I think generally it's going to be a lot more push towards pedestrianisation, a walking based lifestyle, especially in our immediate communities, and all of that stuff will burgeon with the help of Jupiter in Gemini. I'm now going to go through each of the 12 signs from Aries through to Pisces to give you a flavour of what you can expect in year 2024. So Aries, certainly at the start of the year with Jupiter in your second house and forging that link to Saturn, I think what that's saying to you is don't underestimate past experiences, knowledge and skills that you've accumulated over time. The key is flexing to adapt things in a new way. And I think of all the zodiac signs, I feel that you could have some genuine good fortune financially through the month of May. But also it is going to be a month that however much you set your intentions at the start of the year to be a bit more virtuous about what you eat or drink, that could get tested hugely. So expect May particularly to be a very jolly month when you may have a big appetite, literally, to meet up and get together with people. But then with Jupiter moving into the sign of Gemini, and especially the link to Pluto, Pluto moves out of a long journey. It has one last pass of 11 weeks in the autumn in the sign of Capricorn, but it's been in your sector of responsibility and work for 15 or so long years. So Pluto moving into your 11th house is asking you to be much less traditional in your approach to work and much more aware of how you can network and knit together with other people. And that theme will become much, much stronger from May the 25th. And you could be amazed who you do come into contact with throughout the rest of the year. Now, of course, many of us want to know what our love prospects are for each year. I think because Saturn is in your 12th house, it's possible that some parts of your existence have been coming to a close. But remember, you're given an opportunity with the solar eclipse in your sign on the 8th of April to take much greater charge of things. You still have the North Node with you. And then on the 2nd of October, that glorious solar eclipse in your opposite sign of Libra. So I think the autumn onwards could be a very, very interesting time for your relationships. But I feel the best way to get to know people anew is by meeting and connecting in your local community. Of course, many people want to swipe on a phone to connect with people, which has its definite opportunities and upsides. But if you can interact more, perhaps through going to a night class, learning more knowledge or a skill, or sharing talents you have with others, that's going to increase your social interaction in a very enriching way in the second 7 months of this year. Aries, if you're yet to watch your deep dive video for year 2024, please see the link beneath this video. So Taurus, ever since Jupiter moved into your sign in mid-May 2023, it's been augmenting the exciting energies of Uranus, which has now been with you for 5 years. Because Uranus is a sometimes rather reckless energy, it can see us push back and be very rebellious in order that we assert our individuality when it's in our own sign. But this comes on top of the influence of Pluto upon you for the last 15 years in your 9th house. Because the archetype of your sign is that you like stability, routine, you're a fixed sign, and the sense of security and comfort that provides. If you are managing to blend part of that part of your nature with being more open to something that's evolving, that really excites you, you're really nailing it. Because Jupiter in the first house doesn't actually give us instant rewards, but I feel that this is where language in astrology is so important. Rather than priming up people's hopes to an unrealistic degree, the worst side of Jupiter, I think it's important that we understand the cycles. So the first house is the body, it's your individuality. So Jupiter's pushing you to be more daring, bold and adventurous about what makes you feel excited and what you feel passionate about. So that connection for 5 weeks that goes on of March through to the 5th of May is one that you can really, really work with, because if you have felt a little unsure to push outside your comfort zone, because you know, quite understandably, you wanted to keep some kind of foundational elements of your life steady and stable, absolutely get that. But I feel that that combination is really going to turn up the desire to cut your own way in life, to march to the sound of your own drum like never before. So it's going to be a provocative influence, to be honest. But if you have, since the middle of May last year, been trying out different things, experimenting in different ways, trying to approach things with a fresh mentality, because Jupiter is about our philosophy, you could be absolutely flying along. And if that's the case, once Jupiter moves into Gemini, it could be time that you can actually cash in, and that could be literally financially. So the more that you've invested in what makes you unique, special, talented, creative, your flair, the more you're going to benefit. If you've been more passive with Jupiter in your sign, and yeah, you've felt a bit stronger, you've had more stamina, that's all been good, but you're still somehow not quite going for it on what makes you totally authentically you, the opportunity is still there for you right through to the 25th of May. But the second half of the year is really interesting, because it brings, ironically and paradoxically, quite a dichotomy. It brings a more Taurus energy to bear. But perhaps it will also be that you can start to appreciate some of the creature comforts in life, or through the new way of approaching food and drink. So definitely, if you're interested in cooking, making your own wine, the second half of this year could see you absolutely buzzing. But also the second house also can be about our sense of self-worth. If you are investing in what makes you fresh and different, Jupiter in the first, you'll get the benefit in the last 7 months of the year, because the second house isn't just about money, it's about our values, but it's also about our sense of self-esteem. So that can be enriched for you hugely in the second half of this year. But the key is just how much you will work at it to be uniquely you. And it is a tough one for Tauran people particularly, because what you're being asked to do is to take some risks, which could be a little bit counterintuitive. But we can all take small risks in a way which we do feel comfortable with, and that could be the balance to find. Taurus, if you've yet to watch your year 2024 deep dive video, please see the link beneath this video. So Gemini, the really interesting thing I feel, it's not just that Jupiter has been in your 12th house since mid-May last year. The 12th house, therefore, the very Piscean side of Jupiter, to do with your higher understanding of your spiritual dimension. You know, if you have increased your interest in traditional religion or new or unique ways of having a higher purpose in your life, it wouldn't be a surprise. But the ironic thing is that as Jupiter and Uranus I feel has been causing some real mischief for Geminis for the last 5 years, as they come together for those 5 weeks from the end of March through to the 5th of May, you could really make sense of a lot of things, decode a lot of things that perhaps have seemed quite challenging in recent years. For example, if your nervous system's felt very jagged, it's been very hard to sleep, what you're being pushed to do really is understand yourself at a much deeper, more psychological level. And because being a mutable sign and being very quick-witted, and because you've got quick responses that are very amusing, you often move the moment, but that stops you from really, in a way, grappling with your inner dimension, because everyone laughs and you know you've cracked it, you've moved the moment on, but you haven't cracked it because it's still existing within you, anything that you're not totally at ease with. So you know, if you haven't been feeling so great in terms of stresses and strains of life, which wouldn't be a surprise, Jupiter still can give you so many blessings this year through to the 25th of May. So don't just see it in terms of Jupiter hustle bustling into your sign, which obviously has huge promise. See what it can give you in the 12th house still, because it can give you so much. Now, when it moves into your sign, remember the first time for 12-ish years, it's going to, the last time it was with you, July 2013. As you can see, my maths is absolutely rubbish. And it's because Jupiter doesn't follow an exact 12-year cycle. But what you are going to have an opportunity to do is to create a lot of drama, really, but in a positive way. You know, you're so talented, and with Pluto moving to your 9th house, whatever it is you want to say, you can say it to a lot of people with immense conviction, but also authority. And I think, you know, as we do come to the end of May and go into June, something sensational can really start to shape up for you. And especially if you are a writer, a publisher, someone who's interested in technology, you have your own website, you're an entrepreneur that uses technology, or you want to travel more, this can be such an exciting second 7 months of the year. But I feel that there is such an opportunity in the earlier parts of the year. It just may not seem as sexy, but one of the great things you will get with Jupiter moving into your sign is an increase in vitality. And that is really welcome, because, you know, Uranus going through your 12th house has been quite wearing and abrasive on your nervous system at times. So Jupiter moving into the first house is really going to be very restorative to you, I feel. Gemini, if you've yet to watch your year 2024 deep dive video, please see the link beneath this video. So Cancer, for you, Jupiter this year is really interesting because it's going to be moving through 2 signs, but I feel the key word that sums up the whole year is community, but in different ways. So the first 5 months through to the 25th of May is a really bubbly, lively connection to others. The second 7 months of the year can still see that community developing for you, but I feel it's going to be much more ephemeral. It's going to be much more of a spiritual dimension for you. Now, Jupiter is a planet which is exalted in your sign. So when Jupiter returns to Cancer on the 9th of June 2025, that's going to be a completely new beginning for you. But I feel at the present time and through to the 25th of May, you could find yourself in some ways quite rebellious, particularly in that month from the 30th of March right through to the 5th of May, when Jupiter is aligning with Uranus. All sorts of people can come into your orbit that really are very stimulating. But equally, you could find yourself breaking away from some old connections and friendships that may have prevailed for quite some time. But then quite a big change really will kick in. And particularly, I feel, from the 9th of October through the last 3 months of the year, I feel that you can find yourself going much more inwards. And there's really going to be quite a contrast between these 2 connections, because the community in the last 7 months is, I think, going to be much more of a spiritual connection. It could be to do with natural medicine, it could be to do with healing, it could be to do with a church, it could be to do with psychology, it could be to do with the spirit world, it could be to do with psychic phenomenon. All those things are going to take on a huge power in the last 7 months of this year. But I think you're going through quite a time of rock and roll, ironically, in that first 5 months. But I think that perhaps you need to do that, because You're such a nurturer, and the need for stability and security is at the heart of your being. And then that new beginning, that completely new beginning on June the 9th, 2025, I think the time from the start of this year, 24, through to June the 9th, 25, it's almost like you're clearing up a lot of loose ends, or perhaps really defining your identity in terms of your connections to others. But it's going to be your relationship with yourself, your spiritual relationship, which is so potent in the second half of this year. Cancer, if you've yet to watch your year 2024 deep dive video, please see the link beneath this video. Now Leo, for you, having Jupiter in the 10th house as it is since the middle of May last year, may have given you quite a boost, particularly in terms of your career. Because Pluto's been going through your 6th house for so long, obviously that changes on the 21st of January, moves into your sector of relating. But it has been going through an area of great sacrifice for a very long time, but also the 6th house can be to do with the job, but at least the processes with the job. The 10th house is more how we connect to the wider world, raise our profile, gain acknowledgement for our talent. Jupiter wants to be recognised as being a source of wisdom in the 10th house. So it's possible that all the skills that you've evolved over the years you have been using since the middle of May last year to elevate your standing. But because of the connection with Uranus particularly, if you've also been clinging on to a particular job or role because it suits your fixed nature, which is interesting for a fire sign, you can sometimes give away some of your passion in order to maintain stability. And I feel that from the end of March through to the 5th of May in particular, it's going to be a very exciting time, but it could see some new opportunities unfolding for you, and you will have to make some quick decisions. But you know, the second 7 months of this year can move from that more worldly, professional and career-based connections that Jupiter promotes to a much more sociable dimension. And I feel that, you know, if Pluto moving into your 7th house does see a relationship come to a close, or if you're not in one but you'd like to meet one, I feel that Jupiter connecting to Pluto at the start of June could be very, very exciting for you. There's lots of connections right through to the end of the year. Maybe the retrograde could see you humming and hawing about some of your future plans or even your friendships from the 9th of October. But generally speaking, some new energies coming in for you. If there has been a very set way of being for a long time, expect that to change in year 2024. Leo, if you've yet to watch your year 2024 deep dive video, please see the link beneath this video to do so. So Virgo, ever since Uranus moved 5 years ago into your 9th house, the more rebellious, outspoken energies of Uranus may have seen you wanting to distance yourself from something, even if not completely, to explore having more space, being more spontaneous, doing things that are more experimental. Has probably really excited you. But that's quite challenging for a sign like yourself who really appreciates having some metronomic order in your existence. And Jupiter, when it moved mid-May last year to move into the same sign as Taurus, is therefore evoking the more Sagittarius energy that it possesses. So if you have travelled since then, or you're planning a long distance travel, or you've started learning a new language, or you've signed up for a course of higher education, or you found yourself much more restless and not wanting to stick in a job that perhaps is worthy but is too routine, the very thing that used to be so satisfying about it may have become profoundly unsatisfying. And if that's the case, all those energies are going to crescendo up between the end of March and the 5th of May this year, and particularly on the 21st of April, and could provoke you in some kind of way. Now, you may be up for that, you may not be up to it. We can either work with planets and set our own agenda, or we can be more reactive, because sometimes the changes that happen are imposed upon us because we're hanging on for that routine. We've all done it. It's human nature to stick with what's comfortable and familiar. But because Jupiter moves to climb to the top of your horoscope, but also links so powerfully with Pluto that moves on the 21st of January into your 6th house, I think you are, or a lot of Virgos will change your work in some way. You may stay in the same sector, you may stay in the same company, but you're going to want greater appreciation for what makes you different and special. And there's going to be a transformation there. There's going to be a transformation for us all. It's called technology. So if you are doing a role at the moment which is, profoundly worthy, it really helps other people, but you don't feel much passion in it, I think what the first half of the year is priming and prodding and pushing you to really explore what the different options are. But then once you get to the end of May, we get to the 1st of June, and the Sun, Pluto and Jupiter are aligning in a terrifically powerful trine. If you apply for a job, do a presentation, push yourself forwards to gain greater recognition, you could be amazed by how things take off for you in the following year. If you've yet to watch your year 2024 deep dive video, Virgo, please see the link beneath this video. So Libra, for you, Uranus has been making its way through your 8th house. The 8th house is where we're most invested, but it's also where things can come to a close. So Jupiter moving there in mid-May 2023 provoke more of a sense of opportunity about where you can be most invested, where you can be most connected. But as the two planets come together from the end of March through till the 5th of May, but particularly at that peak point of the 21st of April, I feel that you could see something come back to you. Something that where you've put a lot of yourself in. It could be a romantic connection. I don't want to be trivial about it, but the 8th house is the sector of devotion, but of course it is the sector of what makes way as well as new beginnings. But it's certainly where we feel a raw sense of excitement. But then, because Pluto is moving into your 5th house on the 21st of January, links with Jupiter as June begins, that's an amazing trine, and it's really tuning into the air energy of your sign. And of course, we also have that fantastic link between Jupiter and Venus, your ruler, whilst Venus is in your home sign. So something around September the 15th could also be very, very precious for you around relationships. Don't forget, you also have the solar eclipse on the 8th of April in your sector of relating. And you have another solar eclipse on the 2nd of October in your own sign. You also have the North Node still for the whole of the year in your 7th house. So I feel that this can be an important year for relationships. But if you're in a relationship that isn't working, I actually feel that Jupiter moving into the 9th house and your sister air sign of Gemini on the 25th of May, and then soon picking up in that connection with Pluto, could be a fresh start. So as ever with astrology, there isn't only one outcome. There is several possibilities depending on our unique circumstances. But I think that the 9th house energy that is going to come in the last 7 months of this year of the year is very much in keeping with Sagittarius energy. So because you've had such a testing time with Pluto in the 4th, Neptune in the 6th, Saturn in the 6th again, it's not been easy. But Saturn and Jupiter combining very well in the first 3 months of this year can be good for business. But I feel that 9th house energy in the last 7 months of the year could see you liberate yourself from something that's been quite the burden for a very, very long time. Maybe it's even a way of thinking, a way of being conditioned, a way of trying to make life work which isn't quite working. The knowledge base that Jupiter brings to you in the second half of this year is extraordinarily powerful. And there's so many great contacts. You have to be very optimistic about what this year holds for you. If you've yet to watch your year 2024 deep dive Libra video, please see the link beneath this video where you can watch it for free. So Scorpio, for you, the opportunity with Jupiter moving through the sign of Taurus is about how you connect to other people, whether it's business partnerships, alliances of all different kinds, perhaps even in being a little bolder at setting your boundaries, or perhaps a little bolder at trying to connect romantically. But if we took Uranus out of the sign of Taurus, the potential for Jupiter in your 7th house would be very, very high. Putting Uranus there brings in a degree of complication, because Uranus in the 7th house is a very potentially rebellious influence, but it can be very sudden, it can be disruptive, it's not easy. So in an existing relationship, the truth seeker, Uranus, is competing with the planet which wants us to believe everything's going to be fine on the night. And the two come together from the end of March through to May the 5th. And perhaps it will bring someone sensational into your world if you're single and you want to connect with someone. But equally, Uranus could see you want to break away from something that isn't working for you. It could just be that you work in some kind of business partnership or alliance where you're just not enjoying it any longer. But because Jupiter moves into the 8th house, very much in keeping with the energies of your sign, very much to do with transformation, but can be to do with business, finance and investment. And often Scorpio people are very shrewd at those areas anyway. The last 7 months of this year can see lots of opportunities. But I feel that with Pluto moving into your 4th house on the 21st of January and angling up with Jupiter, there could be a link. If you are developing a property or wanting to buy and sell a property or move altogether, the last half of this year coming can be very positive. But that first 5 months of the year is fascinating because Saturn is in your 5th house. That's where you want to demonstrate your creativity, flair and individuality. Saturn is not so fussed on those things. Saturn is a bit dour and wants to shape you in its own image. But if you can make the two areas work, so work very, very hard at your alliances with others, the first 3 months of this new year can see a major breakthrough for you. And the financial benefits of that could be shown in the last 7 months. But if you're in a romantic relationship you're not enjoying, I think April the 21st is going to be a key moment. If you meet somebody around May the 23rd, it could be a match made in heaven. It all depends on your unique circumstances. Scorpio, if you've yet to watch your year 2024 deep dive horoscope forecast, please see the link beneath this video where you can do so. So Sagittarius, Jupiter, your ruler, gives you such a lot of what makes you so very special and dynamic. But it is in a very practical part of your situation for those first 5 months. But the link it forges with Saturn in the first 3 months of this year is one that we really need to take a look at, because that's asking you to get the root of your existence working as efficiently as possible. But as we go into the new year, there's a big Sagittarius influence because we have Mercury and Mars, Mercury in a retrograde, Mars conjunct in your sign, but also Venus. Now, Mercury and Mars are afflicted by Neptune, obviously, like Jupiter, the co-ruler of the sign of Pisces. But Venus critically is impacted by Saturn. So I feel that there's going to be a big need for you to demonstrate more individual influence over how things unfold for you this year. But as much as we can focus on Jupiter alone in the 6th and then the 7th houses, we can't ignore the role of Saturn and Neptune in your 4th house. So how things play out for you with Jupiter in terms of the opportunities and the potential fortune, I think the more that you're working on your inner world, the more you can get the benefits back to you. And that brings us to the 21st of April, because that could be a time that something radically changes for you, but in a very positive way. Because Uranus, over the last 5 years, has not made life easy. I feel that you've been working extremely hard, but with Pluto also impacting on your second house of self-worth, but also everyday money, it hasn't been easy having Uranus in the 6th house, and it's created a lot of tension. So when the two come together, Jupiter can bless Uranus and bring some opportunities, and all the hard work and dedication you show can give you a return, but it all must be fed and supported and work for what's right for you in your inner world, which is really influenced strongly this year by Saturn and Neptune. But that takes us then to the 25th of May, because when Jupiter moves into your 7th house, that's your sector of relating. And something quite magical can occur for you, because with Pluto moving on the 21st of January, it moves into your 3rd house. You're going to feel a shift in how you think. Your nervous system can get stronger. You're going to be stressing less about everyday money and wanting to connect to others in a very powerful way. And because the links between Jupiter and Venus and the Sun are so powerful in the second 7 months of this year, there's enormous opportunities for you. It is true that when Jupiter goes retrograde on the 9th of October, that things could slow down a little bit, but Jupiter retrograde just makes us look more inwards rather than more outwards. But your opportunity to connect with somebody special in the second 7 months of this year are definitely increased, whether it's a business partnership, a new friendship, a new lover, whatever it is. The tension that's been created a lot by Uranus and Pluto over recent years, and more recently by Saturn in your 4th house, is going to make way for a much greater understanding of how you can connect all the knowledge and experience you've been gaining to someone else, but in a very special and nurturing way. Sagittarius, if you've yet to watch your year 2024 deep dive video, please see the link beneath this video. So Capricorn, you have Jupiter in the 5th house through to the 25th of May. That's a glorious place for it to be. Jupiter also links brilliantly with your ruler, Saturn, through the first 3 months of 2024. What's not to like? And also, as Jupiter comes into that conjunction on the 21st of April with Uranus, but then again on the 23rd of May with Venus, something really splendid can evolve around your love life, your creative interest, some way in which you're being passionate or demonstrative or showcasing your talents. But it's all about self-belief, and because Pluto moves out of your sign into your 2nd house, he is going to test out how much you really value yourself. And then as he aligns to Jupiter moving into Gemini, something could shift around how you work or how you earn money in a significant way. Lots of opportunities for the rest of the year for sure. Saturn, of course, does continue, your ruler, in your 3rd house. So how you think is going to be very important to how you use the kind of magician card energy in the tarot to bring into reality something that's very, very important to you. So you need to really work on understanding more about how you may have self-limiting thinking, self-limiting behavior or thoughts. Work on thinking positively and communicating positively with others, and that will bring the magic to year 2024. Capricorn, if you've yet to watch your year 2024 zodiac forecast deep dive, please see the link beneath this video. Aquarius, for you, what a year this can be. With Pluto pitching up in your sign again for the 2nd phase on the 21st of January, but just as your Sun enters Aquarius as well, you also have glorious energy coming through very quickly with Venus and Mars in February. And the link between Uranus and Jupiter, which occurs on the 21st of April, could be a high point of when you sort out something to do with where you live, how you live there, or perhaps your own relationship with your inner emotional self. Being an Aquarian, it depends on where you are as an Aquarius. If you're born in the first 10 degrees, you're much more likely to be much more rebellious, like I am. If you're born in the second 10 degrees, you want to communicate. If you're born in the third 10 degrees, the third decan, you're much more laid back because the sub-ruler is Venus. You know, you want peace and tranquility in your relationships. But if you are an early born Aquarius, and where to live and how to live there has proved elusive in recent years, and the punishing energy, psychological energy of Pluto in the 12th house, it really hasn't been an easy time. So with Jupiter making its way into Gemini, angling to Pluto in your sign, if you're born early in Aquarius, the second 7 months of this year can really see something blossom out in a marvellous way, because what you're doing before then is just really finishing off something that began about 5 years ago, when you started to feel very restless within your family unit or where you lived. I've moved 3 times. 3 times in 2¼ years. That takes some doing, buying and selling. That's not easy, but that's what Uranus can do to us. It keeps pushing us to find our inner truth, and that's what it can do for you. But with Jupiter in the 4th house works in a way because it's exalted in the sign of Cancer, which is very 4th house energy. So Jupiter likes the 4th house, likes Taurus because it's steady and nice. But I think you're going to see a lot of hard work paying off for you in May. But when it gets to the end of June, I think your life's going to take on a much more scintillating dimension. And you really are starting a completely new period of your life, which will be so exhilarating. Hold on, it's going to be quite the ride. Aquarius, if you've yet to watch your year 2024 deep dive zodiac forecast, please see the link beneath this video. So Pisces, with Jupiter being your traditional ruler, you have a kinship, an amazing kinship with Jupiter. And because Saturn in your sign is linking with Jupiter through the first 3 months of this year, you know that Saturn's asking you to be very disciplined and to slim down the range of interests you have to focus on what's really important. Because Jupiter's in the 3rd house, along with the restless, outspoken energies of Uranus in the 3rd house. It's all very well speaking or learning or interacting with people. It has to be with a purpose, and that's what Saturn's asking you to work your way into the year with. But some very exciting connections can happen in your community. You're going to find yourself chatting with all sorts of different people, and I feel the first 5 months can be very, very uplifting. But then the big change happens in the second 7 months of the year. As Jupiter makes its way into your 4th house, Jupiter's fine in the 4th house because it's a very Cancerian influence, which it's exalted in, but it's wanting something different for you, particularly with Pluto moving into your 12th on the 21st of January, and the two pivoting together in the trine. So I feel you're going in, you're starting this year quite chatty and interactive, but you're going into a time of profound deepness about trying to understand what your life really is about, what life means for us all. And it just depends exactly where your sun or ascendant or inner planets are. But if they are stacked up more to the start of Pisces, you're going to feel this a lot more powerfully. If they're more towards the end of Pisces, this can actually be very, very liberating and exciting for you. But whichever position you have key planets in Pisces, a big change is coming as this year goes on. And with Pluto, we can't resist it. We have to go with it. So Pluto moving into the 12th house is having you look at life in a very different way. And one of the areas that's going to change radically for you is where you live, but also your connections with people immediately close to you, so your family members. Pisces, if you've yet to watch your year 2024 deep dive video, please see the link beneath this video.